Hi, in this short screencast, I'm going to walk you through the Mile High Early Learning Montessori Inspired Toddler weekly lesson planning form. First and foremost, we're just going to start at the top of the form and we're going to work our way through each area of the lesson plan form, and then we will end talking about the back of the form. So we start with the classroom, the teacher, and week of. Those are all things that should be filled out every single week when you're turning the lesson in. But I do want to have a little bit of conversation around this topic/study. So in a Montessori inspired classroom, we want to be lesson planning based on the individual ideas and interests of the children in our care. And so we should have some sort of topic of study that we are working on for the week. And oftentimes that topic of study is something that can be extended upon for multiple weeks, anywhere from 2 weeks up to a month. I've seen topics of studies go on for 6 weeks, as long as the children are interested in what it is that you're talking about. What we are trying to avoid by picking a topic of study is this idea of a theme curriculum that is really just based on maybe the month of the year. So for instance, just because it's October, we feel that we need to be focused on fall and bats and pumpkins. Sometimes if that's really what the children are interested in because it's what they're seeing in their lives, then that's totally appropriate or okay. But really, we want our topic of study to be focused on the ideas and interests, and sometimes even the needs of the children in our classroom. And sometimes it's because we as the teacher have sparked that idea or interest in young children, or it's because children have brought that to us. So just make sure that when you are picking a topic of study that you are focused on something that is relevant to the children. It's something that you can work off of to create developmentally appropriate activities for the children, and that it is something that they are interested in. So we should have a topic of study, and again, I don't expect that topic of study to change out weekly. Topic of studies can stay on, and you can be continuing to work on those topics of studies for weeks at a time. The next piece of this is changes to the classroom environment. So when I think about this, I'm thinking about literal physical changes to the classroom environment. So that means that as a coach or as a program director, if I walked into your classroom and you said that I am putting ramps in the block area, that I should see ramps in the block area. So this is materials that are being placed out for children to access throughout the day, and these is not small group activities. So if for a small group activity you were going to be finger painting for art, but it wasn't that you were going to leave paint out at the easel or on the art shelf, then you would not list it as changes to the classroom environment. Again, these are physical, actual changes to the classroom environment where I should walk in and be able to see these materials at use. Sometimes they can relate to your topic of study. Sometimes they could be put out because you recognize that a child might need more support with fine motor development, so you have put out something in the math area to support that child, and maybe it doesn't relate to your topic of study. That's fine. Additionally, I wouldn't expect that this is being filled out in every single area every single week. There are going to be weeks where, yes, you are making changes to every area of your classroom environment, but there's other weeks where you might not. And there might be weeks where you have put ramps in the block area for 3 weeks, and that's totally appropriate and okay. But again, you're not listing on here the materials that you have out in every area. These are just additions and changes to your classroom environment, and they should be based either on the topic of study or a need or an idea or an interest of a particular child in your classroom. But again, this is not where we list small group work. That would come down there towards the bottom of the lesson plan, and then additionally on the back of the lesson plan. The next piece is the daily experience, and in the daily experience you're going to be walking through some of the activities that you were doing during circle time, and in the afternoon again when you're gathering children. So this should really be focused on the large group experiences that you are having in your classroom with young children. And this can be repeated experiences. So it's totally appropriate if you're singing the welcome good morning song every morning, and that's listed on here. If you are going to read a book, I think it's a good idea to list out the book. I think that just holds you a little bit more accountable to making sure that you are actually doing what it is that you said that you were going to do. But any activity or anything that you're going to be talking about during circle time should be listed on the daily experience under morning and afternoon gathering. So we know that we have mixed age groups in our classroom. So for our infants and our toddlers, the lesson plan is split up between being able to support the different age ranges that we have in our classroom. So in the young toddlers and older toddlers, in terms of outdoor activities, gross motor play and fine motor play and social and emotional focus, we know that young children are learning from their hand to their head, and they're learning through sensory motor experiences. So it's super important that you are providing them with those types of experiences in your classroom. So this is where you would list those experiences. So this is going to be things that are related to small group. Maybe it might be an individual activity for a certain child, but other children are going to participate in it. All of that is totally appropriate and okay, but we should be providing fine and gross and sensory experiences to young children, especially toddlers and infants, every week. Social and emotional is another big thing. We know that our goal is helping children to learn to love school and to be able to regulate so that they can be successful in school. So you should have a social and emotional focus. I will say that it is okay for these experiences to be repeated experiences. So 1 week for fine motor play, if you are listing finger painting as the activity for the older toddlers and you didn't get to everybody in your classroom that you would like to, it's totally appropriate to list fine motor play again on the next week. Repeated experiences are actually very beneficial to young children. What we don't want to see is that you're not changing out activities and you're not varying activities to support young children, and that you're just doing the same things over and over again. So be mindful of that. This is a time for you to be intentional about the small group work. This is a great place for you to incorporate TSG in terms of TSG results accountability. And additionally, I think when we're talking about social and emotional, again, these are not skills that we just do one time and never talk about again, or talk about and introduce one time. So it's okay if the social and emotional focus in your classroom is repeated experiences for several weeks, because oftentimes we're trying to teach children a skill and that takes time. And so it's okay if some of what you have on your lesson plan is repetitive. It just can't be repetitive for an extenuating amount of time. The important reminders, health and nutrition, and family school connection are all ways to engage families on the lesson plan. So important reminders might be things like parent-teacher conferences next week, no school professional development day. Health and nutrition is, you might notice that some of the children in your classroom might need to start eating more fruits and vegetables, so you are providing a article to family, or you're telling family to talk about the importance of eating fruits and vegetables during this time, or washing your hands. Family and school connection could be things around use your 5x5 card to go visit the zoo because we're talking about animals this week, or here's an activity you could do with your child at home to continue the support in the classroom. So that's really the front of the lesson plan form, and now we're going to get into the back and talk a little bit about how these two work together. So when we think about TSG results accountability, we're really focused on how are we using TSG to plan for young children. And this is kind of the back page of your lesson plan. So here you would be listing activities, and you might be listing activities that would be on the front of the lesson plan in these particular areas, or even up here, but maybe not. But either way, you're listing activities that you plan on doing to support the developmental needs of the children in your classroom. So you might say finger painting, and that finger painting meets these particular TSG objectives, and then you're going to list out the children that you are targeting using initials only. We want to make sure that we're respecting the young children's personal information, so please only list out initials only. Additionally, it does not work for you to write all for every activity on the back. You need to have worked through and used TSG to plan an individual activity for every single child in your classroom. So every child should be talked about back here in some way, shape, or form that is aligned with TSG objectives, and that there's an activity that is listed for them. And then these activities, like I said, might end up on the front of the lesson plan, but they might not. They might just be back here for your own use. But what's important is that you have intentionally thought about every child in your classroom and how you are going to work to support them during the week to meet their needs and to help support their development over time. So this is really when we're talking about TSG results accountability and how you're looking at the data from TSG and how you're using that data to plan activities for children. This is where we would see that really come to life on the back of your lesson plan form. Both the front and the back of the form need to be filled out weekly and done, and you need to make sure that you are using TSG when filling out the back of the lesson plan form. We've done numerous trainings on how to do that, but if you need more support, we will gladly support with that, and we'll actually be talking about it again over the summer. So if you have any questions, go ahead and reach out, but that was a short screencast on how to use the toddler lesson planning form in a Montessori-inspired classroom. Thanks.